Welcome to the Heroes of Fantasy Football podcast with your hosts, Matt High, Richie Kopech, and Joe Capozzi. Welcome to the lair. And welcome back to another episode of the Heroes of Fantasy Football podcast. I am your host, Matt High, riding solo tonight. Joe and Rich could not make it, but fear not, the show must go on. Here to talk about our typical heroes and zeros. This time I'm going to give some of the guys that I'm breaking down for guys you want to play this week, our wonderful heroes that are going to save us in fantasy, as well as some guys you should fade. But before we get into that, we got to get into some news. We have a little bit, some major stuff is going on in the NFL currently. So let's break that down really quick. Why don't we? We have Jonathan Taylor is a full participant in practice today for the Indianapolis Colts. They have activated his 21-day window off the PUP list. So it is still unknown if he's going to suit up this Sunday. Currently, signs, I believe, are pointing to yes, but we haven't heard anything from Jonathan Taylor as of now, this recording. But everything's been coming out of the Colts. So they said he's excited to be back, but this saga I don't think is over. I think it's just kind of beginning now because there's still some things that need to happen. Taylor needs to play, I believe it's 2 games to accrue enough for this season. So practicing in fall, he's healthy, it seems. So whether a trade comes out of this or something else goes on, it is still undecided. We're gonna have to sit and wait and figure out what is going on. Don't know if we'll have an answer in the near future. But Zach Moss, as of right now, if Jonathan Taylor does not suit up this week, and Zach Moss will have one last ride into the sunset. We'll see what happens, but keep an eye on practice reports, and I'm sure this will be major news everywhere. So unless you live under a rock, you'll hear something in the next couple days. Another person activated off the PUP list was Cooper Kupp. His 21-day window has been opened. He's pushing to play against the Eagles this week. I think he personally does play. I think he's going to want to suit up. This offense has been a lot better than I expected them to be. I was a little bit lower on them because I figured without Cooper Kupp, Puka came out of nowhere, it seems. The running back room, after the whole Cam Akers thing, we didn't know what was going to go on with that. But this team is just, I guess, well coached. You know, Sean McVay he deals with what he has, and he puts the best players on the field. And that seems to be the trend in LA. So I do think Kupp does play this week. We'll see what happens with Puka. We talked a lot, I think, the last episode where we think that Puka is the real deal. I don't see this being a negative for him. I think this actually opens things up a little bit more. He's probably not going to get the crazy target share. Like I don't think we're going to see Puka get another 20 targets with Cooper Kupp coming back. But 8 to 10 targets, I think that's well within the realm of possibilities for this offense. They like to pass a lot, and Stafford has been kind of unlucky as far as passing touchdowns. I think he has 3 on the season. This game could be a couple, so I do believe one will go to Kupp. Just here, welcome back, buddy. Missed you. Here's a touchdown for you. And Puka, we saw last week, caught his first NFL touchdown. It was a game winner against Indy. Spectacular fashion. You'll love to see it. So we'll see what happens with that. Stafford was a full participant today in practice. He was dealing with a hip injury. Kyren Williams was limited, but Sean McVay said he'll be out there on Sunday. Going over to Baltimore, Rashad Bateman was a full participant in practice. OBJ was still limited with his ankle injury. I would expect OBJ to be out. Bateman could be in, and I think that'll be good for this offense. Last week we started to see a little bit of something moving. Having another deep threat, I think, will be a really good addition. It'll help Lamar Jackson spread the offense out a little bit. So I do think that'll be good. Javonte Williams did not participate in practice. It looks like the Jaleel McLaughlin show with Samaje Perine in the mix as well. It sucks for Javonte. I mean, he's just coming back from an injury. I was a little hesitant to draft him this year. Last week, I know I had him as my hero of the week. Didn't really work out, but that was because of injury. So I'm still I'll take a half credit for that one because Jaleel McLaughlin came in and he was great. He had like 70 yards, bunch through the air. He was the real deal last week. I know it was the Bears, so you can't really chalk it up to too much. That could just be a product of you're playing a very bad defense, and here you go. But it was still good to see. It was encouraging to see this offense have a little bit of life. Big comeback. Came off the Justin Fields mishap, but still a good thing. Kenny Pickett left the game with a knee injury. These reports have been all over the place. It was a major injury. They were feeling ACL. Then, it wasn't that bad. Now it was MCL. Now he was limited in practice today, and they expect him to play on Sunday. It's going to be one of those situations where you're not going to know what to do, but it probably doesn't matter at all because the Pittsburgh Steelers have been a dumpster fire on offense so far this season. They can't run, they can't throw. It's just been all the preseason hype that we heard about them has just not been there. It was all preseason, hasn't translated to the regular season. So keep an eye out for that. Pat Fryermuth also was out with a hamstring injury. I expect him to sit this week. Hamstrings are one of those things where you'd rather the guy sits because re-injury risk is major with those soft tissue injuries. Going over to Detroit, Amon-Ra St. Brown is dealing with an abdomen issue. He was limited in practice. Derek Carr was throwing the ball today, but was limited as we all watched, and frustratingly so, on Sunday, he just could not move the ball at all. And Kamara had 14 targets, 13 receptions for like 30 something yards. That's a product of someone who is not healthy, and he should have sat. I don't know why he played. The entire offense struggled because he was there. It was one of those games where you just shake your head, like just sit. It's better for everybody, better for you, better for the team. They just got manhandled last week, and the product that Derek Carr could not throw the ball comfortably. Von Miller returned to practice today. He was activated off IR. So that Bills defense just lost Tre'Davious White. So this will be one of those things, a good addition at a good time. They lost a major piece, but they're gaining another piece back. So we'll see how that rolls this week. Saquon and Wan'Dale Robinson were both limited in practice. I expect them to suit up. Things are trending that way. Saquon was apparently close to playing on Monday night. I'm very glad he didn't because that was hard to watch. Being a Giants fan, everyone listening knows me and the guys are all on the Giants, but man, that was a rough showing. So many sacks. He would have got eaten alive. So it's a good thing he sat. We'll see what kind of upside there is on this offense going forward because Daniel Jones did not look good. I know he was under duress the entire game, and the offensive line doesn't help. It's not looking good right now in Big Blue. But T. Higgins left the game with a rib injury. He is day to day. It seemed like he was going to miss a lot of time. And right now, the way this Bengals offense is, you kind of want them all to sit. Like if you're ailing anything at all, like just sit because something's not working. I don't know if it's Joe Burrow, most likely with that calf injury. He does not look the same. The entire offense is struggling. This week, I know they're going up against the Arizona Cardinals, and your brain says, well, they're going to have that easy. Well, that's what I thought last week against the Tennessee Titans, and they got destroyed. So I kind of want to tease the Cardinals in this game. I think I would take them plus points, but we'll see. Just keep an eye on the practice reports and everything moving forward. If T. Higgins is out and it's just Jamar Chase and Tyler Boyd, I don't know if that's enough to get it done. The Cardinals are pretty bad, but I feel like they've been putting up a fight, so they could kind of run at him and hit him where it hurts. That won't be fun. I hope all of you traded for Brees Hall last week because Robert Saleh, head coach of the New York Jets, says there are no more pitch counts for Brees Hall. He will be full go, but they still have players they want to get the ball to. That just means Brees Hall, if he shows up and does what he did week one, which is what we've been waiting for, he's going to take over that backfield like it's no tomorrow. Dalvin Cook does not look like himself. He looks bad. Michael Carter's getting work. None of them are as good as Brees Hall. I think everyone would agree with that. It just depends on, I guess they were easing him back in with that injury, which I understand, but you got to put your best playmaker on the field more than a couple snaps. So hopefully this is the best outcome. This could be prescriptive for the rest of the season. Brees Hall could be a league winner from here on out. So I'm definitely trying to acquire him if I can. Running back is a little bit different because there are so many injuries on that position right now that it will be very difficult to get him. But you got to shoot your shot. You won't know until you try. So send out offers, see what they get. You might want to buy at cost. I wouldn't buy him high right now just because there is the potential that this offense just does not get better. But last week I was encouraged. Zach Wilson didn't look bad. He actually had a pretty good game. Like just watching him play the game, they were setting him up for success, and it seemed like that team is capable if they have the same game script and they run the same plays and have the same mindset. Like just watching him, I don't know if anyone watched the last part of the game, just watching him, how upset he was that he lost. Like he felt like he lost it. I don't think it was. I think that was just one of those games where he did what he could do, and I was impressed. So we'll see what this offense brings this week against the Denver Broncos. That should be able to help him with a little confidence because their defense is terrible right now. But we shall see. We got 4 teams on bye for week 5. They're the Bucks, the Browns, Chargers, and Seahawks. So a lot of big players out, unavailable this week, and we'll be back next week. So let's jump right into our heroes of the week. So quarterback hero, you probably guessed it, but Anthony Richardson versus the Tennessee Titans. I am all in. I'm taking the plunge. No parachute, diving off the cliff. I'm ready to go. He looks good. He's currently ranks 3rd among all quarterbacks in fantasy points per game. And let's not forget that's missing 6 quarters of football. So full game and a half. That's crazy. That's like Cooper Kupp last year when he was finished as a top 24 wide receiver and only played 9 games. This is the upside that this kid has in his repertoire. He could do this. 69% adjusted completion percentage by PFF. Probably unsustainable. I don't think that's going to happen much longer, but everyone, me included, did not think he was going to be passing like this. He was not. I figured he was going to be in the 50s in pass percentage. It's a little bit higher. So that's really encouraging to see. This offense, Shane Steichen is doing a great job of getting him in the right situation, calling the right plays. He's getting a bunch of rushing attempts. Last week, it started really, really rough. They were down 23-0 at one point, and then something clicked and they started moving the offense. So I expect more of that to come this week. And let's not forget the Tennessee Titans, their secondary is pretty god awful. So having Anthony Richardson, let's say he's not the best passer. They're a little harder to run on. I do expect him to have a decent passing game this week because of that matchup. So that could bode well for Michael Pittman Jr., who disappointed last week as well. Moving on to my running back hero of the week, it's Isaiah Pacheco versus the Minnesota Vikings. Snap share has increased. It peaked last week at 60% of snaps, 20 rush attempts for 115 yards and a score, also outpacing Jerick McKinnon in receptions. 12 receptions compared to McKinnon's 9. Not something we expected going into the season. We figured he was not going to be involved in the passing game whatsoever, but leads the team's running backs, that is, in receptions. So there could be a lot of points in this game. I expect this to be one of those high scoring games as well because the Minnesota Vikings offense isn't awful. Justin Jefferson's there. Hey, he's pretty good at football. They got Jordan Addison, who I expect to have a bounce back week. TJ Hawkinson, Alexander Madison, Cam Akers. Like they have pieces. It depends on how well Kirk throws the ball, which I know is a little bit iffy game to game, but currently he's been airing it out left and right. So tons and tons of pass attempts. So I expect this game to be pretty good. Pat Mahomes on the other side of the ball. I also think he's pretty freaking good at football. So I think he gets it done. Travis Kelsey will be good. And I think there's going to be a lot of scoring opportunities, which could bode well for Isaiah Pacheco to take a little bit more of the running back role and sneak out some extra points for you on Sunday. My wide receiver hero is Zay Flowers of the versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. Coming off a game where Lamar Jackson had himself an absolute day with Mark Andrews and him combining for 4 touchdowns total. Zay Flowers wasn't super involved. I think he only had a few targets, a couple of receptions. I think 5 targets, 4 receptions for like 40 something yards. I do expect him to be a little bit more involved this week. The Steelers are another pass funnel defense, and they just let CJ Stroud rip them apart for 300 plus yards and 2 touchdowns. So I think the same could happen this week. Lamar Jackson has been a little bit hit or miss this year so far with passing. Zay Flowers, he's a target guy. Him and Andrews, I think, are the lead guys in this offense. They're not. They haven't really had as much success running the ball compared to past years. So I think this game is going to be one of those where they're going to air it out a little bit more than we're used to. The Steelers currently rank 31st against opposing wide receivers, so that's another great thing for him in his favor. So Zay Flowers is someone who I think exceeds expectations this week. Tight end hero of the week, Zachary Ertz versus the Cincinnati Bengals. Ertz has been an absolute target monster this year. Targets have been 10, 8, 2, and 10 last week. So through 4 weeks, he's got a bunch of targets. Has yet to score so far this season, but it's kind of expected because the Cardinals' offense isn't that great. They're a lot better than I think a lot of people thought they were going to be. I certainly did not expect them to be moving the ball as well as they have been, but there are still glimpses of, yeah, they're not that good. But in PPR, Ertz is pretty much a must start because he's guaranteed at least 6 to 8 targets in this offense and doesn't do a lot with it after the catch, but still not bad. He actually dropped the touchdown last week on the final drive against the 49ers. That would be, I think if he hits that, we'd be talking about him in a little bit of a different light right now, but definitely not a sexy pick. But the way the tight end position performs weekly, like I'll take the floor with Zach Ertz any day than some of these other dart throws. We're just hoping they come down with a touchdown. He gets it done without a touchdown, it seems. All right, zeros of the week. Starting off with the quarterback zero of the week. CJ Stroud versus the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons, their game plan is they're going to run. And they're going to run and run and run. Nothing new to any of you who've listened to the show. We've said that or have eyeballs and watched the Falcons any time in the past year. They love running the ball. That drains the clock. They want a slow pace game. They're going to slow every offense down because that's just their game plan. Arthur Smith just loves runs, and they're not, despite all the jabs on their defense, like they're actually not that bad. So I do expect a less than stellar output. I know CJ Stroud has been on absolute fire. It's great to see. I love watching him play. It's been awesome to watch him. But at the same time, I don't think this game, I think this is going to be a blip in that stat line. He's averaging over 300 year passing yards per game. I just feel like it's going to take a step back this week. Um, their defense is going to, I think, do enough to make it hard for him to throw with most likely the game script that's going to be there. They're going to try it. They're going to have less passing opportunities. I just don't see the upside here. So I would wait another week because I think next week against the New Orleans Saints, he should be a little bit better. I know they have a decent defense, but their secondary is a little banged up right now too. So this is just not the week. Don't get cute. It's hard. Sometimes you want to play the hot guy, hot hands. NFL coaches do the same thing. This might be a little bit closer to a floor than a ceiling play for CJ Stroud. So if you have to start him, I know a lot of times you don't have a better quarterback, especially if you had some of these other guys struggling or they're on bye. He might have been there. He picked them up on waivers. It's okay. I just don't be upset or surprised, I guess I should say, because we're all upset when our players don't perform. But he just might not have the full ceiling game that we have seen so far from him. My running back 0 is going to be Ramondre Stevenson versus the New Orleans Saints. Saints are the 6th best defense against the run, allowing under 13 fantasy points per game. The Patriots' offensive line just can't block. Their run blocking is bottom 16 in the NFL currently. He gets a lot of volume, which I'll give it to him. Last week was weird. The reports were coming out that Ezekiel Elliott was going to get some starter snaps, but that accounted to 6 total snaps. It doesn't matter. Ramondre's the guy in that offense, but he's been pretty inefficient so far. Part of that, most of that, I would assume, is the offensive line. He's been pretty inefficient, 2.7 yards per carry, averaging on the season. That is not great. People freaked out when Najee Harris could break, 4. So this is a full point plus below that. So it's time to freak out a little bit. Plus, they also benched Mac Jones, who had an awful, awful day last week for Bailey Zappi. So zap, zap, zap your way into the starting lineup. We'll see how this offense runs, but I don't expect it to be a pretty showing this week against a really good run defense who has been really good against the run for years. So this is nothing new for this offense. Wide receiver 0 of the week goes along with CJ Stroud. Nico Collins versus the Falcons as well. He's probably going to get AJ Terrell. He's been pretty much a shutdown corner so far this year, and that's where he's going to line up, unfortunately. So, like I said, with CJ Stroud, you never know what's going to go on. But with these wide receivers, it's hard to really see which one every week is going to go off. 1 week you think it's going to be Nico. He does well. Next week, he takes a little bit of step back to Tank Dell. And you're like, okay, I'm in on Tank Dell. We'll play him next week. Then it's a Nico Collins day. We see this typically with rookie quarterbacks supporting their wide receivers. Usually they don't at all. So, like, the fact that they're playing well with a rookie quarterback, playing at the level he is already, uh, is really impressive, and you should be grateful and really take that into account when you're setting your lineups. But this week, just with the lineup and the matchup, another one. I just don't know if the ceiling is going to be there. It might be more of a floor. So if you have one of these guys and if he's a third wide receiver or a flex, you might be able to play him and feel pretty good. But as a wide receiver two that he's been kind of playing us so far, I don't know about that. So if there's a way to put him in your lineup, you might want to look at doing so. But I'm sure you have better options on your bench or on waivers currently. This week, long term, Nico, I'm in this year. I'm ready for it. I like what I see, and I'm excited. Tight end zero of the week to finish us up. George Kittle versus the Dallas Cowboys defense. This offense is so much fun to watch, and that's because it has a ton of awesome, great playmakers. Problem with the offense is it has a ton of awesome offensive weapons and playmakers. So right now, Kittle is just less involved. You know, CMC is just running rampant. Debo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk commanding a large target share. There's just not enough to spread around. We have this fear every year with the team where it's like, wow, they look really good, but they all cannibalize each other. And right now, it kind of seems like George Kittle is an afterthought. So we've yet to see a historic good Kittle game. You know, touchdown, bunch of yards, high involvement. Usually that comes when one of these guys is injured. And historically that has been true. He does a lot better when one of them is out. The game he did really well was the game that Debo was limited. Or Ayuk was out, sorry. Last week was not good, and that was because CMC decided not to share. Just get all the touchdowns for himself. So right now, he gets the Dallas Cowboys defense, who are currently allowing under 4.5 fantasy points per game to opposing tight ends. Yuck. I am not excited to play him, especially if all these players are healthy. So if Debo, Ayuk, and CMC remain healthy, you just don't know when George Kittle's going to go off. You know, chances are you're playing him because you drafted him high. It's George Kittle. He could have one of these games easily, but against this defense, the probability of that happening, I would say, are a lot slimmer. So it's not someone I am trying to get into my lineup. Personally, he might belong on the waiver wire. I know it's hard to hear, but we did it with Pitts, and it 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 sucks, especially at tight end. You're looking for these guys who are very talented, but one of Kittle's best attributes for the 49ers is his ability to block the run in the run game. He is one of the best tight ends at blocking, and unfortunately, in the game we play of fantasy football, that is not a great thing. So, just realized I left the news thing up. Sorry about that. Forgot to hit the button. Going on to defensive streamers of the week. Some of these guys are should, most likely we're on waivers that you had the ability to pick up, but some of the top ones here are the Ravens at the Steelers. Whether it's Kenny Pickett or Mitch Trubisky, this offense has just not been running very well. I know there's a hashtag fire Matt Canada thing going around on Twitter X, but things have not been looking nice. So I do think the Ravens have a good defense. I think Marlon Humphrey was back at practice today as well, so they're getting a little bit healthier. I just don't expect them to have to do too much to manhandle the Steelers this week. Again, it's an in division game, two teams that know each other very well. Sometimes that breaks fantasy a little bit and one broken play or whatnot, but I do think there'll be enough sacks, couple turnovers most likely, and I don't know if this will be a necessarily high scoring game, at least on the Steelers side of the ball. So I do think the Ravens come out pretty much on top and a good play this week. The Commanders at the Bears, we saw it last week. I told y'all if you had Pepto, put it in, have a little bit of that before the game and play the Denver Broncos defense. If you did that, you were actually pretty happy. They had forced a couple turnovers and had that fumble recovery for a touchdown. It's I know last week was a good offensive output for the Bears, but that was against the second worst defense in the league. So take that how you will. I don't know if that will happen on a team like, let's say, the Eagles. If that would happen, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see this week because Commanders' defense isn't great, but I don't think the Bears' offense is going to do what they just did to the Denver Broncos. I think that was mostly the Broncos. It was nice to see, very encouraging. I last second I had to play DJ Moore because I had an injury, but it didn't feel good, but it worked out. So it's one of those, you're just doing one of these, hoping this is the week that it goes to him. And I just don't know what to expect really. But the Commanders, I think, will do okay against the Bears. I think their floor will be pretty good for a defense with the chance of a turnover, pick six, fumble recovery, you name it. I think it'll happen. Dolphins at the Giants. This one could be number one. Uh, I don't know what the offensive line of the Giants was doing, but they decided, yeah, we don't need to block anybody. We can just, here you go. Here's our quarterback. Come get him. And there was a bunch of sacks. There was 11 before I turned it off. So the Dolphins aren't the best defense, but in this matchup, they're going to be able to do whatever they want on that offensive line. I expect sacks. The only thing I would caution is we haven't really seen Saquon the past couple weeks, and I know he was there week one when they got destroyed by the Dallas Cowboys defense, but I don't know if it's going to be that level of great, but it should be pretty darn good and exciting to watch if you are a Dolphins fan, because I expect some very bad things to happen to my New York Giants. Got another pick here. The Lions at the versus the Panthers. The Lions are home, and the Panthers' offense is struggling as well. It's another one of these offenses with a rookie quarterback that just doesn't seem to get it right now. Pass catching is subpar. The run game is kind of non-existent. I know Miles Sanders was limited all last week and suited up anyway, and Chuba Hubbard kind of took over. I know Joe mentioned Chuba in the waiver episode on Monday night. He's someone that you should definitely add because he's involved in the offense, and if anything happens to Miles Sanders, he basically is the guy. But this game, the Lions are their defense is pretty good. They do very well against the run, and they're no slouches against the pass either. So I do think they're going to bring enough pressure against Bryce Young and the Panthers to make it very, very difficult for him to do anything whatsoever. And I think that's going to force a couple turnovers and some sacks. So the baseline should be pretty good with high upside to basically destroy the week. Got a sleeper pick here. Texans at the Falcons. Now I know I kind of poo-pooed CJ Stroud and Nico Collins, but this game probably won't be a very, very high scoring game. And I do think the Texas defense has been somewhat surprising. They kind of manhandled the Jaguars. They've been able to kind of do pretty good lately. And I think this could be one of those matchups, especially if you're doing DFS. This is one I might actually put in because they're going to be cheap. I know the Falcons aren't the best offense. Desmond Ridder doesn't do well. The pass attempts just aren't there. When Jonnu Smith is one of the leading pass catchers on a team, you got a problem. And I think they're going to be able to take care of business this week. I don't think this game is going to be one of those two bad teams going together and having a lot of points together. Kind of like the Bears and Broncos last week, where two bad teams got together and the offensive output was pretty good just because the defenses were bad. This I don't think is the case here. So if you're looking for a sleeper pick, I would tease that as well. I'm debating on that this week. I think I have another better option, but one of the things I'm looking at is that. So that is going to wrap things up for me tonight. As always, please like, share, subscribe. Check us out on YouTube. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. We're there. We're really trying to push this thing out there, help you guys out. It would be wonderful if you guys would send us some questions. We would love to answer them on the show. Leave us a review. And until next time, everyone, good luck. So long, everyone. Thank you again for tuning in to another episode of the Heroes of Fantasy Football podcast. Follow us on Twitter at TheHeroesFF.